Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. If you guys are new around here, my name is Sophia Carey and I'm a photographer and graphic designer from the UK. So the response that I got on last week's video about product photography was great, and you guys really liked the editing section at the end. If you guys haven't checked that out, I'll link it somewhere on the screen so you can. So what I thought I'd do today is film a video on some Lightroom tips, hacks, if you will. It's been a while since I filmed a Lightroom video on the channel, so yeah, I think it's been like maybe almost a year, so it's a good time to kind of bring that back to the channel. So really, without saying much more, I'm gonna jump straight into it. If you guys have any questions or any other tips and stuff that you kind of want to share, then just drop them in the comments and we'll have a conversation down there. Okay, so I've just jumped into Lightroom and we've got some photos that I've imported just to kind of, show you guys how we can use these techniques on different kinds of photos. The first thing that we're going to be talking about are keyboard shortcuts. So essentially, keyboard shortcuts are just things that you can type as you're working that will do certain things on Lightroom and just speed up your workflow and your editing process. So as you can see, we are in the developer mode. If I was to tap E, it will toggle me into the library mode. To go back to develop, I'm just going to tap D. To turn the lights off, and what this means is just isolate the image and we'll just see the image. I'm going to click L, click it again to isolate completely, and then again to return back to normal. We're going to click Tab to close all of the side panels, Tab again to bring it back, Shift Tab to close all panels, and then Shift Tab again to bring it all back. If I was to press Command and a little apostrophe, it will create a virtual copy, which means that I have two copies of this image and can edit them both in a different way. Tapping B will add my image to my target collection, which by default is my quick collection. Tapping Command B will take me to my quick collection, and tapping Command B again will take me back to the one that I was in, which is all photographs. Tapping B will remove it from my quick collection. If I go into the library module and I click on this grid view, say I wanted I had an edit on this photo and I wanted to synchronize it with the next four. I'm going to press Shift and select to the last one and select these four images, and then I'm going to click Command Shift S to synchronize those settings. And this little dialog box comes up and I can click, if I don't want to copy the lens distortion, then I won't, I'll untick it, or if I do want to copy the crop, I'll tick that. And then you just click synchronize. Similarly, say I had an edit on here, so we're just going to really bring down the exposure just so you can see. And I wanted to copy this, this low exposure, I'm just going to click Command C. And similarly to synchronize, we're going to get this dialog box. I'm going to select which bits that I want to copy. I'm going to press copy or press enter. Then I'm going to go to the next image and I'm going to click Command V to paste that low exposure or those same settings. If we go into an image like this one here, if I was to click the letter J, it's going to bring up these red parts and it's also going to bring up these blue parts. And what that's basically telling me is it's showing me where my image is clipping. So clipping refers to the parts of the image where detail is lost. So the blue bits show me where the detail is lost in the shadows, and the red bits show me where detail is lost in the highlights. I can turn that mode off by pressing J again. Let me just put a quick edit on this so you guys can see. So I've just changed the temperature. If I was then to press backward slash, it will show me the before. If I was to press it again, it will show me the current. If I was to press Y, it will show me the before and after next to each other. The next hack we're going to be talking about is turning on and off effects. So if I wanted to reset the temperature, I can just double tap temperature and then you see it goes back to how it was. Another thing I can do is, say I played about with split toning. I added some shadows, I added some highlights, but I wanted to see the whole image without that, just without that. I just click this little button here and we can turn that off. It doesn't mean that it doesn't exist, it just means we're looking at the image without it. So let me just add a little tone curve as well and show you that it doesn't change that. If I was to turn off the split toning, We've still got the tone curve, you can still see that, but you can't see the split toning anymore. And again, this doesn't mean you've removed the split toning, it just means that you're viewing the image without it. The next hack is panel management, and panel management can be a great way to really fine-tune your photos and optimize your workflow. So if you're in Lightroom, chances are your panels at the side are like this at the moment. They're just, you know, like a little thin little sidebar. So what we can actually do is we can drag this out. And if you want to drag it even further, so this is where Lightroom kind of bars it. If you want to drag it further than that, you just need to click Alt and then drag it, and you can drag it as far as you want. So what are the actual benefits of doing this? Some of the benefits of dragging out your sliders like this means that you can really fine tune your image more. It allows you access to finer details and you can make those little adjustments. So for example, when it's like this, it's quite, the jumps between here and there, it's quite a lot. But if I wanted to drag this out, and then I can kind of see a little bit more and have more control. Another thing I could do is, if I was getting a bit overwhelmed by all these tabs open, I can just right click that, click solo mode, and it will just show me that one tab that I've selected. Another great tool in Lightroom is called Alt Option, and Alt Option will, it will help you do a lot. And what it really means is you just tap the Alt Option key on your keyboard when you're doing certain tasks. So for example, if we open up the tone curve, we've got the tone curve open here. You know how it works, we're usually just like moving it about. If I was to press Alt Option, it lets me really fine tune that and do it a lot more, slower, a lot more specifically than if I wasn't pressing it. If we come down into split toning, using Alt Option in split toning is probably the most powerful way to use it in my opinion. And what it does is it momentarily shows you whatever hue you've selected at maximum saturation. So what this means is that you've got a clearer idea of what color you're working with when you're working in your highlights and your shadows. So let's have a look. So for example, as we know, if I was to pick this blue, nothing happens unless I start bringing the saturation up. What if I wanted to see the color without bringing the saturation all the way up? If you press Alt and you drag it, it brings it to the maximum capacity so you can really see. So for example, we can do the same in shadows, what color you're applying. And then of course you can come in and you can add your saturations. When we open up the cropping tool, you can also press Alt Option and you can crop into the middle of your image. This is great if you're really looking for that perfect center. Another way you could use the Alt Option key is when we're talking about cloning. So for example, if I had added, all of these different clone bits and I didn't want to click on all of them individually, or the ones that I wanted to delete it, if I click Alt Option, I can just click on it and cut it from the image. Whilst we're on the topic of spot healing, you can also use this little tool down here called Visualize Spots, and you can change the tolerance here, which is a really good way to see, especially if you're working with items that might have dust on them, for example, where the spots are. So for example, if we take this image and we bring it up a little bit more, we can see, oh look, we've got like a little speckle here that we don't want. And here. And it's just a lot easier to kind of identify those spots that you might not be able to see with your eye normally. Another thing we can do with the spot brush, healing brush, is we can create a straight line. So if I was to click this bit here and press Shift and then click that bit there, it's going to create a straight line and clone that whole line rather than you having to drag the brush and maybe not getting it straight. One of my favorite tools in Lightroom is the ability to use target adjustments. If we scroll down to tone curve or your HSL sliders, for example, you can see this little dot. If I was to click this dot, it allows me to access certain parts of the image directly from the image. If that doesn't make sense, let me show you. So for example, let me go into saturation. I click this dot and then I want to change the saturation of this color here. Obviously you and I know it's blue, but maybe if you have an image where you can't quite tell where the saturation falls on the spectrum, this is really useful. You can then just drag up or down on the blue and you can change that color. Again, we'll go into luminance and we'll try with the pink. As you can see in the sliders, it's actually got a bit of red and a bit of magenta. So that kind of helps you know what colours are in that, because otherwise you might just change, you know, the magenta and not realise that there's also red in that part of the image. Another great thing about Lightroom is that it gives you a lot of options when you're cropping. So for example, if we bring open our cropping box, you might not realise that Lightroom actually allows you to play around with composition more than you think. So for example, if I was to tap O, it's going to toggle between these different compositional modes. So we can see like rules of thirds or golden ratios, for example. If I was to click Shift O, it will rotate that guide, for example. Another great thing that Lightroom allows you to do is change the background color. So by right-clicking this gray area, I can change it to white, or I can change it to black. And this is a great way to see how your image looks in different scenarios, or have a clearer idea of what the color actually is, especially if you start bringing in split toning. So for example, if I wanted to bring split toning into my highlights, or I wanted to bring my highlight down, then I can see against the white what that actually looks like, or against the black, for example. So you're probably very aware that white balance is a great tool for playing around with creative lighting, for fixing lighting that was a bit difficult in the actual production. And a great thing that Lightroom allows you to do is Lightroom allows you to use this little eyedrop tool to actually select your white balance. So if we come over here, you can see that if I click this bit as a neutral color, it corrects my white balance straight away. If you look over here into this navigation window, you can also see like an example of what it will do. So you can kind of have more control over your white balance. Of course, if you are playing around with creative lighting, or it's not really, you know, to your style or your taste, feel free to deviate from what Lightroom suggests your auto white balance should be. This is just a really great tool to help you correct difficult lighting. Lightroom also has a ton of tools to help you properly align your image. So for example, if I was to open up the crop tool and I click this little ruler sign here, I could drag along this line here and straighten the image against that vertical. This is great if you're trying to, you know, straighten your horizon up, for example. You just drag that ruler line across your horizon and it will straighten it up. But as you can see in this image, we've actually got a lot of vertical lines and they're not all doing the same thing. Another thing Lightroom allows you to do is if you scroll down here to transform, we can use guided perspective. So by clicking this, it will do it automatically, but you can also tell Lightroom where you want it to crop. So if I want this to be one of my lines and I want this to be one of my lines, for example, I just tell Lightroom and it will adjust the image, transform the image to suit that. Again, Lightroom has things like auto, or it has level, which can also help you. Just bear in mind that sometimes it gets a bit wrong, so be careful with it. Another great thing you can do is if you click File and Optimize Catalog, you can optimize your catalog and that will just speed up a little bit. The next thing we're going to be talking about is masking. Lightroom has a load of tools when it comes to masking to really help you. So we're just going to click on this local adjustment brush here. So what we're going to do to show these masking tools is just change the background color, this blue. We're going to alter it, but we're going to try not to alter the blue on Josiah's top. So what we're going to do is we're just going to draw around it as we would normally. As you can see, it's getting a lot of Josiah's skin and hair. So how do we change that? So I'm just going to remove that. And we're going to press Command and do it again. And you'll see that Lightroom is actually detecting the edges for me. It's not always perfect, but it's a lot better than what we had going on before. But you'll also see that I have gone over a little bit. So there are different ways that I could deal with this. I could press Alt and turn my brush into an eraser and manually erase that. Or I could scroll down to this tool called Range Mask. And if I change Range Mask to Color, it allows me to have a little bit more control over the colors. So if I click the eyedropper tool, I can select a range of colors for it to select. And you can see that it's taken away this white. It recognizes that that white is not blue and it's saying, right, well, that's not what she needs to select. So we're gonna get rid of that from the equation. And you can change the tolerance it has of this using your amount sliders. So it will be more or less forgiving of the colors surrounding. Hopefully you can see what that's doing. Another great thing that Lightroom does is if you press Shift O, it allows you to change the mask color, which can be really useful if you're, for example, you're working on a blue background, you don't want to use a blue brush. So we can use this red, for example, to see where the brush is. And if you click O, it will just toggle between the mask overlay view and the mask not being on. So this is on, this is off. And then we can see kind of what we're doing here with the background. So you can see there that we have changed the blue background to a more subtle kind of greyish turquoise without affecting the blue on his top. So that's all from me today, guys. Let me know in the comments what you thought, if you have any other tips that you want to add. If you are interested in learning more about Lightroom, let me know what you want to know. I'll come up with some more videos for you guys. In the meantime, I do have a class over on Skillshare where you can learn about editing, and in that class I go through editing in Lightroom and editing in certain mobile apps and just kind of the foundations of an editing process. You can access that course and 2 months free of Skillshare with the link in the description. While you're there, I've also got a class on mastering photography, the basics, where we're talking about how you actually get started in photography, and a brand new class on personal branding. So if you're looking to build your brand, then there's a class in there for you too. But as ever, let me know what you want to see in this channel. I will see you guys in the next one. But until the next one, you guys can catch me over on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, you know, wherever you're socializing, I'm probably there. So check out my links in the description. Thanks again for tuning in, and I will see you guys in the next one.